you drink coconut water or anything like this? Do you have what's your favorite beverage? You just said that you love water. What else is there when it comes to beverages?
Chalky milk.
Chalky milk?
I was an absolute fiend in school for chalky milk.
Dude, chalky milk from the canteen would hit it so hard.
Yeah, like I had chalky milk almost every day. I used the canteen at school. It was bad.
What was the order?
For morning tea, like on the days that I actually went to the canteen, it was like for morning tea, it would be a giant cookie and chalky milk, the small size, not the carton, the small size. And then lunch.
Couldn't handle the carton.
No, but lunch was a carton.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right.
Lunch
Okay.
was a
I
carton.
understand.
And followed by like the hot food special of the day.
Okay.
And then
What they got? Chicken tenders, fried rice, burritos, etc. Like the regular pizzas, whatever the canteen's going on that day.
Yeah, it's just like your generic hot food special.
Classic.
It was more like a cafe, which was kind of nice, like the canteen.
You went to Knox, by the way, for people that don't know. So that gives it some more context, maybe.
It was called the Boater Cafe because
Okay.
the boater is like the hat we doff. And then like if I stayed after school for study, we'd get like dinner as well, and that'd also come with chalky milk. So on the days that I was at the canteen and didn't have stuff from home, you know, the chalky milk was there.
Chalky milk's good, but if you have too much of it, it just weighs you down. Like you're paralyzed for the rest of the day. Like if you have a big chalky milk and a feed, you're out of the game for like 3-4 hours. You just need to be stationary.
So I heard like when I was a bit younger, I did like the New South Wales squash camps and stuff for that. And we had one of like the ex-pro squash players come in and was just trying to help us out. And I remember this conversation we had, and they're like, chalky milk is like one of the best drinks that you can have like after your match or like between your games.
Okay.
Because it's got like that sugar that instantly gets you. And I've forgotten everything else, but all I know is that like chalky milk was like the best drink. I don't know if that's fact.
That has to be bullshit. Carl, look that up. Because the freaking dairy, it weighs you down. Like if you have a big bowl of yogurt or like a big thing of milk, especially with food, I feel like it just sits in your stomach like a brick. That's what I feel. You know, like maybe other people, the sugar just gets them going.
I've seen other posts that say like chalky milk
is a sports performance drink.
Maybe not performing, but it's like it's good.
It's good. It's a good.
I don't know. It probably needs to be fact checked by Kyle.
Dude, this is my enhancer right here. A little bit of that coconut water. It's got a little bit of sugar in there, all natural sugars, of course, but then it's got essentially all 4 electrolytes in there. It's got potassium, magnesium, sodium, and chloride all in one drink. And so instead of having like an electrolyte powder or a liquid IV or anything like that, you can slam one of these, get a little sugar hit. They taste delicious. Get all your electrolytes and refuel. This is probably one of my favorite beverages. But I'm pretty new to the coconut water game. I've only been on them for maybe a couple months. So, all right, Carl, what are we saying? Is chalky milk good for you midway through AFL game or something? Look, dude, in the 4th round, if Dustin Poirier whips out the damn chalky milk, I reckon he actually finishes Max Holloway. That's what I'm talking about. All right. Okay, so, wow. It's got a little tick there. It replenishes glycogen, carbohydrate, and protein ratio. Has the ideal protein ratio. Wow, okay. Prevent cramps and things like that. Muscle repair, hydration, electrolytes like calcium, potassium, and sodium.
It's proven to be better than some commercial recovery drinks.
Wow.
It's great for recovery. Yeah.
Okay, before or during exercise. Chocolate milk is not ideal during or right before a workout for a few reasons. Too heavy. It's thicker and can cause stomach discomfort. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
It was definitely after.
Okay, that's cool. I didn't know it. But the thing is, with chalky milk, though, they use like synthetic sugar, refined sugar, which isn't good for you. Right? Like it's just fact that that's why the natural sugar is, in my opinion, the way to go. Like I try not to eat any processed foods in general, but I eat a bunch of fruit, bunch of honey. I slam like 2 of these a day. I'm still getting sugar in. It's all just natural sugar. But you were talking about before, you've got the KFC on the show here.
The KFC.
You said there was 4 burgers in that meal. You said you had 30 nuggets last night.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk a lot about like you on this show, and I feel like you have a lot of like seriousness to you. There's a lot of serious parts of your life that you take very seriously. One of those things that you don't take seriously though is your diet, right? Talk to me about that. Was this something that like you like have you always kind of just like not cared and just done whatever you kind of feel like, or has this been a
Yeah.
sudden shift at some point? What's the go?
Well, in school, I did a lot of like endurance sports. So I was swimming a lot. So I almost swam every afternoon. I did cross country. I did track and field. So like almost every sort of like endurance sport that you could do besides like cycling. And so like my metabolism during school was just like insane. And it probably is still insane now just by like looking at what I eat. And I'm quite privileged in the fact that I can eat whatever I want and I don't really like put on weight
Mm.
like a lot of other people do.
Mhm.
So I guess that's why I haven't really had to focus on like what I eat. I can just eat whatever I want.
Mhm.
Um, from a performance point of view, it doesn't, I don't really feel any different if I'm eating like KFC or pasta or anything. I feel like I can just like do go out and play a sport or go for a run, no matter no matter what I
Mhm.
have.
Mhm.
So that's why I feel like when I've my diet is what it is. It's just what I feel like and what's cheap. Like if I ever go to KFC, it's only because it's like a special deal on.
Mm.
Like I love those deals, or like a Macca's deal or something like that. Domino's deals on Tuesdays. You know, they've always got that $6 pizza. Yeah, you can start to memorize all the special deals you have.
Mm. Mm. No, I completely understand. And it's one of those things where, like, when you don't see, the results of your diet on your physical self because you've got such a quick metabolism, then, you're not really incentivized to work on the diet, right? But my whole thing recently has been on like food quality. I want the quality of my food to be the highest caliber possible. I want my steak to be, grass fed. Like I want, my milk to be from the best cows, my eggs to be from hens that aren't in cages, that are from free range hens, all this type of stuff, and just focusing on like quality food, getting organic fruits and vegetables, right? Getting, clean water, all these things, right? Like, coconut water with no additives, and try and just get like quality foods. And I feel like that's what I've really focused on this year, just cutting out things that aren't good quality, and just
KFC.
dialing it in. Yeah, I haven't had a KFC in so long, and I love KFC. Like,
Well, what about Guzman? Like, surely Guzman isn't like the best.
okay, listen, Guzman is actually almost perfect. They only do one thing wrong. They cook in canola oil, which is a seed oil, which has inflammatory properties. There's a slew of things wrong with seed oil because of the way that's processed. Really, they take canola oil, which is rapeseed oil, and good rebranding there, I guess, because canola sounds so much better than rapeseed. But anyway, it's a conversation for another day. But they process it. It releases all these carcinogens. They bleach it. They dye it. They bottle it. If you go to the like supermarket and you look in the vegetable oil section, they're all this beautiful golden color. But if you think of like seeds, that's not how things work, right? And there's all these processes. They boil it, which makes it rancid, and then they bleach it with a chemical that's like anyway, it's a long story. There's carcinogenics involved and things like that. But the thing is, that's why GYG isn't 100% healthy. But all of their other stuff is relatively healthy. It's all whole food based. They've got rice, they've got guacamole, tomatoes, beef, chicken, free range chicken, even. The list goes on. They're using quality ingredients, which is what I'm all about. It's just that oil. But the thing is, you can't blame them. They're living in the capitalist world. Olive oil is $1 million for a little bottle, right? And ghee or tallow, which is probably a good alternative too, is really expensive as well. And I guess that's kind of like the give and take of the system that we're in. They're always going to prioritize making a affordable product because people like yourself love the deal, right?
I need the deal.
You need the deal, right? And the burrito can't cost $25 and be healthy for you. They rather it cost 18 and it be all right, So here we are. And then you have, GYG is a good example, but then you look at McDonald's, KFC, Hungry Jacks and things, and you look at the ingredients in those buns and stuff, and you're like, I can't even pronounce any of these, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of them just the numbers, like acidity regulator 441, and then you look that up and it's like aluminum potassium or something, and you're like, I don't even know what this is. Like, what is this doing to me, right? There's so much random stuff that's in the back of food ingredients. People just like, oh yeah, okay, all right, whatever. But if you actually look into it, it's like, whoa, what is this stuff they're putting in our food, right? Do
No,
you worry
I
about that too much?
I don't, but I know that it's not good for me. So I'm not gonna have like fast food every day. Like I said, I only do it when I see like a good deal, or if I'm like, or if like I ran out of time to cook at home before I go into work the next day, because like almost every night I try and do something, and like sometimes I just run out of time to cook up like some pasta or whatever it is I want to cook up.
What are you typically making at home? Like, what are the go-tos?
Pasta, like
You just
anything.
love pasta. Do you have
Yeah,
meat with the pasta, I imagine?
yeah. So I've last week I made a spag bowl.
Mm-hmm.
So what, like a kilo of meat, a kilo of sauce, a kilo of pasta. Worked out, turned out pretty good, if I say so myself. And before that, I'm like making chicken pasta, which is on a tomato-based sauce with veggies, and once again another kilo of chicken pasta, and it's delicious. It's great. Um, so I've sort of like started off with those couple ones, and then I do like variations of like chicken wraps, and like I'm not too adventurous. Like I don't mind cooking, but I like this easy stuff to cook. And like anything with like chicken or beef mince or burger patties or sausages. I have to have some sort of meat in every meal I have. And so yeah, it it's based around what meat I have in the fridge or what meat I go and buy from Woolies or something.
Yeah, I completely agree. I have to have some sort of protein with the meal, and 90% of the time, that's eggs or meat. Really, like today, I had eggs for breakfast, had beef for lunch, and then I haven't had dinner yet, but I'll have it after, and that'll have meat on it too. Like that's 3 meals with animal-based protein, which is the best protein for the stuff that I'm trying to do, like, working out, long distance events, like, explosive stuff when it comes to fighting and everything. Like, you want as much absorbability from the protein sources that you're eating. Because most people don't know this, but like, like plant-based protein is not as easily absorbed as protein from meat and from eggs, especially. Eggs have like a 48% absorption rate. Muscle meat has like a 36%, but plants and plants like beans, legumes, lentils, etc., all the plant-based proteins, right? 16% absorption rate, right? So if you think about the difference between eggs, getting a gram of protein from eggs versus a gram of protein from lentils, it's actually not equal. It's very different. The absorption from the eggs or the muscle meat is going to be far better than plant-based protein, which is why like vegetarian sort of diets and vegan diets, in principle, from like an emotional standpoint where they don't want to hurt animals, I can understand that. But from a health perspective, it's kind of like you're not really getting everything you need. And if you really are dialed in, you can, but it just becomes so much harder. You have to eat so much more stuff, supplement with so much more gear, and then that's a lot for your kidneys to handle, etc. It's just easier to eat meat and get your protein through there. And it's the same thing with iron, right? There's iron in vegetables like spinach and things like that. It has high levels of iron, but it's non-heme iron, whereas heme iron in muscle meats is far better absorbed because it's in this like polyphenol ring, right? And this polyphenol ring can just be absorbed straight into your metabolism because what is it? It's ferrous iron because it's Fe2 plus, right? Whereas the iron in spinach is Fe3 plus, right? So it has way lower absorption, right? And so, but people don't know this. They think like, oh, like plants, this is the solution. Plant-based protein, like plant-based burgers and things like that, this is healthy. But a lot of it's super processed. It's not the same protein quality, and that's why, as you said, I'm a big fan of meat. I have meat in every single meal.
Well, like I've got a friend at work. He's on that carnivorous diet. Shout out Reese. He comes into work every day with just like a bowl of mince. Like I think he said like he goes to the butcher and like sometimes buys like 7 kilos at a time of just mince, and all he does like every meal is just mince by itself. We're like, that's crazy, or like it's mince with egg.
Yeah.
And that's all it is. And he doesn't have like anything to supplement that with. Like that makes my diet look so much better, like in terms of variety. Like I love tomatoes, I love carrot. Like I love my vegetables. I love fruit as well. But he's just like always on this meat diet, which we find so fascinating. But apparently it works for him and it keeps him like really healthy. Works well with his body.
Yeah, well, that's the thing with diets. It's every everyone has their own template, and
Mm.
everyone it's kind of like, it's not a one size fits all policy
Yeah.
when it comes to diet. Everyone has their own journey to undertake when it comes to their own nutrition, exercise, lifestyle, etc. Right? Speaking of lifestyle, speaking of exercise, right? You play a lot of golf. I know you have been kind of like in and out of the gym. What's your current routine look like, and how do you kind of take care of that?
Yeah, so I don't gym. Well, I've never had a gym membership before.
Mm-hmm.
I did like sort of build like a small home gym at the end of like year 12, um, which I didn't use for very, very long, like maybe a couple months on and off. And as you would know more than anyone, you need to be consistent, and I was just not consistent. Um, but outside of that, I every night I try and do something. So it's either golf or squash at the moment.
Mm.
So I try and play like a relatively high level of golf. And I know I need to like train and like practice for that. It's like any sport, except a lot of people just don't realize like to be like maybe at an elite level, which I believe I am at golf. You actually got to put in the hours. So I try and go to the range once a week. I've also got like a mini setup at home. Like I'm fortunate enough to have like invested in my own golf sim that I built.
That's sick.
Yeah, no, it was really cool. And then on the nights that I'm not in that, I like play squash because I think that to supplement my golf, I need some sort of cardio. And squash is like insane for cardio. Like I don't think people understand how many calories you burn or how exhausting it is and how good it is for your cardio fitness levels. So on a Tuesday night, I train squash, and then Thursday night I compete in like the Sydney Pennants, Div 2, and that's great fun. And it's once again, it's great for my fitness. I can't just do golf. Like golf isn't going to push me from a fitness point of view. It'll push me from sort of every other point of view, like technique, mental grit. But like in terms of your cardio, it's not going to do it for me.
No, you're getting that cart, right? When it comes to when it comes to golf, what is the handicap looking like right now?
It's not looking great.
What's the best it's ever been then? Because I remember you've told me some crazy numbers before.
It's the best it was a couple months ago, just before I started work, which was plus 2.2.
Wow.
So for those who don't know too much about the golf handicap, the golf handicap is designed to make it an even playing field. It's probably the only sport out there that makes it so that anyone at any level could compete against each other. So if you've got a handicap of like 18, that means that your final score at the end, you subtract 18 shots from that, versus someone who's on a handicap of 5 and you subtract 5 shots from that. So with my handicap of plus 2.2, I'd actually add on 2 shots. So it's a little bit different to actually subtracting the shots. At the moment, I'm off 1. I had a few bad weeks, but I had a lesson, so things are looking better. And I'm actually like, it's called soft capped, and you actually can't go much higher. It's to stop people like purposely blowing out their handicap so that they can win charity events, and say, or like sandbag. I don't know if you've heard of that term, like sandbag.
Yep. Manipulate so that they can win the tournament.
So Golf Australia thinks that I'm sandbagging. Right? That's how bad they think I'm playing. But I promise I'm still trying. So yeah, it's currently
still
at 1.
Shooting off 1 is insane. For people listening at home, that essentially means over the full 18 holes, you're 1 shot under par for the whole course, right?
1 shot over.
1 shot over.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're minusing 1 from your score then, whereas before you were plussing 2.
Yeah.
So adding 2. So okay, understood. Dude, that's still insane, right? What course are you typically playing at these days?
So Pimble Golf Course, I'm a membership at. I'm very lucky. It is a private course, so it's maintained very well. My bank account does remind me that of every day. It is not a cheap hobby, unfortunately. Golf is a very expensive sport, especially like when you put as much time into it as I do, because I love competing at a pretty high level. Like I played a few amateur tournaments, and all of that's pretty expensive.
Mhm.
To play like a normal round of golf, like once a week at like a private club, it costs like a visitor $120, which is quite expensive.
Yeah, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And even like tournament entries, you're paying upwards of $100 just to play,
Mhm.
and that's like if you're doing that every single week, that's taking a lot of
It
lot of
adds
money
up.
out of your bank account.
I understand. I understand. When it comes to these tournaments and like, these aspirations that you have with golf, kind of lay that out. Do you have any goals when it comes to your future in the golfing world?
Yeah, so for context, I was meant to start my full-time job. So I currently work at Macquarie Group. Um, and I was meant to start that last year, but I deferred it for 12 months. So I could go traveling in Europe for 4 months. And when I wasn't in Europe, I was like doing full-time golf,
Mm.
working on the side, but almost every day playing golf. And I discovered I was pretty good at it. My handicap was coming down. Um, I think it's a crazy number. Like, 0.1% of golfers in the world have a handicap of scratch, or I'm sure Kyle could bring up the numbers. So, like, I knew
Wow.
I was doing well.
Mhm.
And I told myself, hey, if I got to +3,
Mhm.
I would maybe defer my job even more. Just go down the professional route. I didn't quite get to that goal. Like I said, I got to +2.2. And I was like, I felt like you just had to draw a line. You can't just keep chasing it.
Mm.
You have to set yourself a goal, and if you don't complete it, that's okay. But you just got to set yourself a boundary. You can't just keep hacking at it, and just relying on hope. I will say that my Europe trip definitely hindered my progress, as I did not play golf at all for 4 months during the year.
Mm.
And when I came back, I was absolutely shocking.
Yeah, I understand, but it's so hard to like draw a line in the sand of your own dreams, right? Like, going on to play professional golf, that's a dream that you'd had, an aspiration, a goal of yours, and being able to kind of go, okay, look, this is the ceiling and this is what we're going to do and this is the decision I've made. It's very mature, but it's also a very complex decision.
Mm.
Was like, did people mentor you through that, or did you find it relatively easy, or was this something that was quite tough and took a lot of time to manifest into?
Yeah, it's sort of drawing the line between a hobby and like a career. I think I felt like I was pretty mature in making that decision myself,
Mhm.
because I absolutely love golf, and it's hard to like draw that line between making it once again like a hobby versus a career. And so I gave myself that goal. I think like at +3, I could maybe go on, and it's worth taking the risk. There's
Mhm.
always that risk. Hey, if I don't make it, I lose a few years of my corporate life or my corporate journey, and then I'm always going to be a bit behind. I already sacrificed that by 1 year. Like, I'm behind everyone in BIAC,
Mm.
which is fine. Like, 1 year doesn't matter. But as
It
soon as you
doesn't matter at
take
all.
like 3-4 years, it you sort of regret it a little
Mm.
bit. And that's why I didn't want to happen. So I just was like, yeah, we got to draw a line in the sand and have a benchmark to meet. I didn't quite get there. Maybe give me a couple more months and I could have got there, because, like I said, I got to my lowest just before I started work. And once I found my feet after coming back from Europe, I started playing like really good golf. I came second at an amateur tournament, won a bit of money, and things are looking really good. And then as soon as you start working 40 hours a week,
Mm.
it makes it a bit harder.
Is there any hope of getting back there while maintaining your current role, or would you have to, go part time or take certain leave arrangements to, get those dreams back on track?
Yes, you could. It it requires an insane amount of dedication, drive, and I don't know, like discipline as well. I feel like I could get there is if every single night I was like, yeah, I'm going to use my golf simulator at home, just practice, 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 practice. Having said that, at the same time, you got to go out, play different courses, and then there comes in the financial costs of it. Like, if
Mhm.
I already pay a lot of money to be at my home course, and if I was to go out and play different courses and get different skills at playing different courses, that's a lot of money, and it's a lot of time that I don't have, because for most other private courses, you can only play during the week if you're a member.
Mm.
So if you're a visitor, and you can't do that if you're working. So it makes it challenging, but I think my aspirations while I'm working full time is just to maintain my handicap, keep improving, keep having lessons. But I feel like because it's not my main focus at the moment, life gets in the way. Like I'm playing squash, you know, if I'm taking golf seriously, you can't really be playing, you know, couple nights a week of squash. Why are you doing squash instead of golf those nights? That's sort of like, you know,
That's what the mentality needs to be,
Yeah.
right? If you're trying to make it, you
Oh,
know,
100%.
it just has to be golf, golf, golf 24/7. And if you have free time, fill it with more golf, right? Whether
Yeah.
it's technique, drilling, whether it's time on the course, etc., etc., right? Even time in the gym. There's a lot of exercises I remember when you were like in that golf grind during like that gap year that you had, and we'll talk about that and the trip and everything. But there were like certain exercises that, you know, like the golfing exercises that you were doing. Talk me through those.
Like in the gym?
Yeah, I
or-
feel like we've talked about this before. In the gym, you were doing like certain movements, like twisting and like all this sort of stuff with weight on.
Yeah.
Is that true, or am I getting mixed up with somebody else? I feel like
Like-
I only know two. I only know two, like two or three golfers really. I know you, and then my second cousins are absolutely insane at golf as well.
Yeah, I remember he went to the US or something.
Yeah, yeah,
something
yeah.
like that. That's something I would have loved to have done if I had started golf a little bit younger. So probably only got serious at golf after COVID in university. Whereas like almost everyone who's sort of at a high level played throughout school, but in school I did every other sport but golf, which I regret. Because I feel like if I had started a bit younger, you know, accelerated and got my handicap down and played at a high level for a longer period of time, there's a lot more opportunities would have opened for me. I did investigate going to the US to college on scholarship and stuff, but the recruitment agencies told me that I don't know if this is true or not, or if they're just like giving me a shit excuse.
Yep.
But they said they don't accept people who've already done a university degree.
Oh, okay.
So I think like in my second year of uni or something like
Yeah.
that, I was just like, okay, what if I went to the US or something? Just out of curiosity, what would happen? And because I had already started an undergrad degree, they wouldn't accept me starting another undergrad. I'd have to go postgrad, and then they won't sponsor you doing a postgrad, or something like that.
That's so crazy. But it's sort of, I don't know. I don't know how the American college system
Yeah.
works. Very, very weird
They
stuff going
wouldn't
on
let
over
me
there,
do
actually.
an undergrad if I've already done an undergrad.
Yes.
Because I wasn't going to leave halfway through my
Yeah.
course. I would have done it like afterwards.
Mm.
But yeah, apparently if you've already done an undergrad, they won't let you do another undergrad.
That's crazy. Why don't they just let you do it? It's more money for them, and they potentially get a great golfer out of it, which is, you know, what the scholarship's all about, right?
I don't know. That could have been their way of saying, hey, you're not good enough.
Yeah, exactly. That might just been blowing you off.
You never know.
But I don't think they were, because let's look at this now, right? So we've got the golf handicap index distribution for men. So here we go. So +5 to 0, which is the category that you were in, is less than 0.5%. Or sorry, is about 0.5% according to ChatGPT here.
Yeah.
And then 1 to 5, which is where you are now, is 5%.
Yeah, so it's 0.5% of all male golfers in the world. So yeah, it's a decent level to be playing at.
Decent, right? It's like literally like elite of the elite. If you've ever played golf, you understand how hard it is. You understand that it's a different technique, and it's very, as you said before, it takes a lot of mental control, right? Emotional control. And like, you know, there's a lot of like golf IQ involved in what club am I going to hit? Where am I laying up? Et cetera, right? You know, how you've picked up golf like later in life, you know, like in our lifespan, 23 years
4
old,
years ago,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right? But some kids have been playing since they were 11, right? How have you like expanded your golf IQ? Have you had mentors? Were you watching YouTube videos? Was it just time on the course? What did you think worked the best?
So it's funny. I always reflect on like I see all these younger kids, all of these amazing handicaps coming through, being like, "Oh my god, you're like a scratch handicap at the age of 16," and unpopular opinion maybe, but I think I don't really care about them, or I'm like, that doesn't mean you're going to be professional, because I think it's such a mental game. And if I'm seeing like these juniors get angry or lose control of their emotions, I'm like, there's no chance you're going to make it. And most of the time anyway, these 16-year-olds have like already like grown up, you know, their body, they've gone through puberty a bit faster than maybe some others. And so, I feel like that's the same thing in all sports. Like in swimming, I see 16-year-olds with adult men body, and I'm like, it doesn't matter how old you are. Like, what impact does your age have on the sport other than your physicality, which doesn't apply to you because you've already like grown into a man's body. So the only thing left is mental, and obviously you can learn and grow upon that. But to think that you're going to suddenly go pro and be like the best in the world, I don't believe in that. I'm not saying that I believe that I would, but I feel like I've got a very good like mental game when it comes to like golf and like staying calm, being very analytical, not getting angry. Like I've seen so many people toss their clubs, you know, swear after every single shot, all of those sort of behaviors. And I'm like, if I hit a bad shot, I'd be like, that sucks, but you know, next shot. And I don't have that money to be, you know, breaking my clubs, just tossing it. I think it's a bad look, and that's sort of why I think my handicap came down so quickly is just because I had a really good like mental game and really smart about the way I play golf.
No, I've talked to a lot of like long distance endurance athletes on this show so far. And it's like, that's a mental game in itself, but golf is entirely different, but still a mental game, right? You just controlling your emotions, not getting frustrated, not getting in your own head, you know, being able to calm nerves when you are about to take your shot. All these things are so difficult. You're playing against yourself really when you're playing golf, especially when you're playing in a handicap environment, right?
Yeah.
You know, the golf is one of those things though where you can do it for life. Like, you know, so many people, especially as they get older, take up golf, and you know, the better you are at a younger age, it seems like the better you are at an older age too. You know, is this something that you plan to just play for the rest of your life?
Oh, 100%. And I know my golf club's going to love to hear that. That's why they get you in while you're young. No, it's a fantastic sport. Like we've got 80-year-olds, even some 90-year-olds at the club who continue to play. And that's going to be me. I love it so much. But just touching on that point about, you know, how you got like other people on the show that's done like some amazing running or other events. I feel like for me, I do a lot of training for golf. And like I know a lot of people do like a lot of training for other stuff. But then when I say, hey, you know, like I'm playing I'm playing this weekend for golf, for me, it's like, you know, I'm actually like dialed in order to play at this elite level. But I feel like it gets the wrong impression sometimes, so people don't actually understand like the sacrifices that you actually make during the week, if that makes sense, because it's not something that people can relate to. Like, if you say, hey, I run like a sub 5-minute K or 4-minute K or whatever fast time is for running, people can be like, yeah, wow, I've done that before, and that's really impressive. But for most people who haven't played golf, it's hard for them to relate and be like, wow, to be playing off scratch, you know, that takes a lot of time, a lot of training, or, you know, to play certain tournaments, it requires like quite a bit of sacrifice. So I feel like, and I'm sure there's other sports out there where people don't actually realize like the commitment it takes versus more of these mainstream sports, I guess.
Well, everyone can compare themselves to running, right? Everyone's run before. Everyone knows what their times were when they were running, or whatever it may look like, or what fast people's times are on average, etc. But when it comes to something as nuanced as golf, where you've got a handicap and it's a complex system of how it works, and you know, even you know, sports like Formula One driving, right? People just think, oh, they're driving the car, but it is like a full-on physical experience. These guys are training the house down outside of the races to make sure that their body's in peak condition to go into
like
that.
Social sports. Like people think like, okay, go-karting, right? There's people who do it professionally, right? But you say, hey, like I do go-karting quite competitively. They'll be like, oh, that's cool. Like I say, I do golf competitively. They're like, oh, going to the golf range. That should be so much fun, right? I was like, what are you doing tonight? I'm going to the golf range. They're like, oh, that's chill. Have a good time. I'm like, yeah, like I'll enjoy it, but like I'm also like trying to get dialed.
Yeah, you're in the gym, really. Like it's
Yeah.
the golf gym, you know. And that's the same with all things when it comes to sports. It's always more complex,
Mm,
harder than you think it's going to be, right? But that's the whole point of the learning process. And once you've been able to do that process once, right? Like Miyamoto Musashi, who's a like famous Japanese samurai, he has this quote where he says, "Once you can see the path in one thing, you can see it in all things," right? And I think
mm,
that's very true when it comes to effort, hard work, determination, and the results being the fruit of that labor, right?
yeah.
And that's very true when it comes to sports, because you've been able to succeed with golf. You understand what the commitment looks like. I'm training 5 times a week. I'm working on technique. I've got lessons. I'm playing in a big group. I've got people mentoring me. You understand what it takes to get to that 0.5% of golf players, right? So you can take that and apply that to your career, other sports, your lifestyle, hobbies, whatever you want to pursue in life, right? And I guess speaking of that, you've kind of, you've come off that gap year and now you're into a career at Macquarie, as you said. How has that been, this first like sort of 6 months in the role? And then, where do you really want this to go? What do you want to do, Adam?
Yeah, no, I was really fortunate that I was able to get my job deferred for 12 months. I don't think it's a very normal thing because obviously these companies want to like lock you in, and they don't want you like searching for like other jobs and all those sort of things. So I was very fortunate that I was able to take the year off and go traveling. I wanted to get rid of that travel bug that was in me. I know so many people that as soon as they start work, they go through the first winter where all their friends are in Europe or traveling, sort of like the period we are in right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting there and I'm like, that looks really cool, but I don't need to go. Like, I'm not getting FOMO or anything because I did all of that last year. I was very lucky
Mm-hmm.
that I could do it all last year. So, and then when I came back from Europe, and having like a really disorganized lifestyle, like when I was backpacking around and not having much structure, I felt so refreshed and ready to like get into a structured life of work. And so transitioning from like a gap year into work was very easy, apart from like the missing the golf sort of part of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I also liked having a bit more structure in my life, and also being able to like see you guys a lot more, because I couldn't come into the city for lunch, just to see the boys at lunch.
Understood.
An hour back wasn't going to work.
We're as far away. I hear you.
And so it's given me more opportunities for those sort of things. So while I lose some opportunities, I've also gained a lot more from starting work.
Speaking of opportunities, what do you think the future holds for you in your career?
I haven't really thought long term about it. I'm sort of more thinking short term, which I know isn't always the best approach. But just while I'm in like sort of a dynamic part of my career at the moment where, I'm in a graduate program and I'm changing a lot of different teams, I feel like having a short term approach works for me. Might not work for everyone, but I'm just focused on the day to day, the week to week sort of tasks that I need to do. And I want to complete those well, get some good reviews, good feedback, good performance, in order to kickstart my career. Because I feel like in the grad program, when you're rotating around, it's a bit hard to, set your goals long term. I just want to like set up my career the best way I can by performing really well in these rotations that I'm doing.
I understand. And taking it short term, taking it day by day, it allows you kind of put the pieces of the puzzle together that builds the long term plan, because why be like anxious about like, oh, like, I have to have this set up in a year. I have to be here making X amount of money in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is, right? And putting those expectations on yourself when all you can control is today, right? And as you said, in such a dynamic role, who knows what tomorrow holds and what opportunities are going to fall your way.
That's not to say that I'm like not ambitious, as I would describe myself as quite an ambitious person. Like whatever activity I did, whether it was at school or university, I would do my utmost best to like to be the best in that activity. Whether it was like swimming at school, being part of this like the swim team, or track and field, being part of the track and field team, or going into like the first team in sport at school. It's I feel like I'm a very competitive, ambitious person, but right now in my career, I feel like I'm not competing against anyone. I'm just trying to set myself up in order to kickstart what I think would be a really long and ambitious career. Like I'm not doing work for the sake of work. I love to accelerate, push myself, challenge myself, and try and climb that career ladder as quickly as possible. You know.
I understand. When it comes to, you said you were ambitious, the motivation, where does that necessarily come from? And have you always had that? Is it kind of you have days on, days off, or is this something that you're just driven all the time?
Yeah, I definitely had I'd say it was more exposed when I was younger. I feel like I made quite a few mistakes in school, which led to like sort of tall poppy syndrome,
Hmm.
in the sense that like I try my hardest to be in the top band or the top team in sport, or just achieve all these ticks, and I felt like I wasn't very humble about it. I mean that was a maturity thing. Some people go through um, you know they mature in different ways, and that was a bit of a shock to me in school, where I was very competitive and I was very like proud of myself that I had managed to make these achievements, and I kept pushing myself and was ambitious to like make that cross country team, and I'd work hard to do it. um, but then when there was a bit of tall poppy syndrome at the school, where I'd sort of get chopped down a little bit. And then I feel like I became a lot more humble. And that's sort of like, as I've gone through, I feel like I don't really share my achievements too much.
Mm.
I'd like to think I don't. Maybe some people might think I do, but I don't talk too much about myself or some of the stuff I do, just because I got humbled at school for being too ambitious, or like I don't know if boastful is the right word, but I feel like I was just very proud of the achievements I had made, which
Mm.
isn't a bad thing, but there's a good way of doing it, and I may not have done it the best way during school. And it's good to reflect on that.
So good to reflect on that, right?
Mm.
Because school puts you in an environment where it's just you're learning lessons every single day, not just about other people, but about yourself too, and how you react in certain situations. And as you said, this is kind of like a situation of the ego, right? Where it's like you're not necessarily boasting, but you are proud of these things, and maybe that, that pride, like just seeps into the way that you talk about your achievements. So you talk about yourself, and then people, take that the wrong way or want to cut you down because they haven't achieved things like that, etc., right? When it came to your parents, did they sort of instill that on you? Did they put any pressure on you to like, become that and have that mindset? Or is this something where you're like, this is for me, this is what I've always kind of wanted to do?
Yeah, I think so, for sure. My mum definitely pushed me. Um, Firstly, it was like from a grades perspective. So, for context, it was in year five. I was going for scholarships at the private schools because that was like the best way to get into it. Because, yeah, private schools are really expensive, and we weren't sure if we were going to be able to afford it. And so, she pushed me really hard to like get scholarships. And so, I think that's when it sort of first started. Like I did 7 music exams in 1 year.
Wow, that is insane. What do you mean? I like, isn't the most you can do 2? Because
Yeah,
they have the, what was it, Trinity or
Amy B.
Amy B? Yeah, that's what it is.
So within 12 months, I did 3 piano exams, 3 French horn exams, and 1 theory exam.
For people that don't know, Trinity's the easy one. Amy B's hard because Trinity, they only make you're only judged on essentially playing your instrument, right? You play
Performance.
exactly, right? Amy B, I'm playing the trumpet. Now they want me to play the piano. Now they want me to sing. Now they want me to sight read, all this, conduct the orchestra, all this other stuff that I don't know how to do. I don't know how to play the trumpet, but it's all about the music theory, which is
Yeah.
why the Amy B exams are so much harder. So doing 7 in 1 year is insane.
So yeah, I got pushed to like to try and get the scholarships, because we didn't know much about them. So like some people had been preparing since they're like 4 years old.
Hustling to get these
I need to get the scholarships, and here I am, just like trying to smash it all out in 1 year, just because we weren't prepared or anything. It's still similar to like the selective schools test. Like I remember it was like the day before they had this test for selective schools, and then
Mhm.
everyone in my class was going for it because I was in a different type of class.
Mhm.
And then my mom's like, "Oh, what is this?" And they're like, "Oh, it's like this big exam, etc., etc." And then the next day, I rock up and sit the exam versus all these guys that have been preparing for like so long, I guess. So I don't know. Maybe I was just always a little bit unprepared. Um, in those sort of environments. But yeah, my mum definitely pushed me to achieve like the best sort of grades I could, like from year 7 to year 12. Like I didn't really slack off too much
Mhm.
because she'd be disappointed if I didn't get like A's and all those sort of things,
I understand.
which I really appreciate. It's probably one of the best things that was done for me, like to push me be the best person I could be. And it wasn't just grades; it was also behavior in school.
Mhm.
Just maintaining like a good report card that said, "Hey, well, at Knox, I graded you on your behavior and your homework, so you get like a 1 and a 1 if you're great,
Okay.
and then 5 is like the worst." And so I'd always have to get a 1. And she'd always say that that's more important than getting the A's,
Mm.
which I think is great. So definitely, my mum pushed me. Um, and I think that just translated into everything I did, whether it was the music during school, the sports teams, all those sort
Yeah.
of things.
No, I completely understand. I would have been like a 3 or 4 kid, I reckon. Like if you're a 1, I would have been like 3 or 4 because I'm not 5. 5, we know what 5
Yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah.
That's where, they're screaming at the teacher, throwing chairs in the window and stuff, like just crazy stuff. I wasn't doing that, but I was pretty disruptive and I
Yeah.
love talking, as people can see, right? So, when you're young, you don't necessarily understand respect the same way that you do when you're older, right? It's just one of those things where it takes maturity to develop that hindsight, that foresight to understand that we should respect others. But when you're young, you're just like, what's going on? What am I even doing in school? Why are we learning all this? I just want to express myself.
I
And I
remember
feel like
like
that's how it was for me. So
yeah. So no, I remember like on that, I was able to hold like a perfect 1 from like year 7 to like year 12, and then I remember this chemistry class. The teacher didn't like me. I was like the one teacher at school. I never had a problem with a teacher until year 12. And so I was like in the back row of this chemistry lab, and I was just helping my friend with an equation that I sort of knew it quite well, and I was helping him, and I got threatened to like send emails home to my parents because I was talking. And all I was doing was I was just trying to help my friend who was a little bit unsure, and she's the one that broke my perfect 1. So
wow.
for context, like I think there was only one other person in my year who had maintained perfect 1 up to then, and then this teacher just like he did me dirty,
Took your studious crown right off your head.
Yeah,
That's
Studious Sunius was
insane.
common name.
But it got taken away, withdrawn.
I know.
Broke the streak. When it comes to that studious Sunius sort of stuff, it's a bit of a joke, but I feel like there is a bit of truth to it. You are very you have a very strong moral code that you live by, right? Have you is that based in sort of a religious kind of pretext, or is that something that you've just developed over time through your own lens on the world? How do you see it?
um, Probably not religious. Like no one in my family is religious. I did scripture during school was Protestant, so I was raised with. Correct me if I'm wrong as well.
No, no.
Christian values, is Christian and Protestant the same?
Yeah. Well,
So
yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
So I've got a really bad understanding of
No.
the different. Yeah, I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Protestant is a sect of Christianity, but
Okay.
then there's also Orthodox, Catholicism, etc.
Yeah, so I was thinking of Catholic. Yeah.
Yes.
So Christian values, that's what I was raised with,
Mhm.
but like I never like practiced any of that. But in terms of I feel like I'm a bit of a perfectionist,
Mm.
and that sort of comes back to me always just wanting to be the best, and having that competitive drive to be the best, no matter what I was doing. And like I had this fun little thing with a friend during school with like mobile games, and he'd always would always compete a little bit, and then he'd show me a record, and I would work so hard to beat that record,
Mm.
until I got it. Like I sort of like hyperfixed on like beating him, and like he loved it, I loved it. It was it wasn't harmful or anything, but it's just like my competitive nature in me that just wanted to be the best, and I don't think there's anything too wrong with that.
Oh, absolutely not. I'm super competitive too, but I think the way that I've seen it more recently is I don't necessarily want to be the best. I just want to be more of myself.
Mm,
You know, like I just want to be more me. I want to understand myself more and be able to express myself in the most true, pure way. And this like podcast is kind of like a reflection of that. And every single episode, I get better at painting a better picture of myself, I think, you know, because it's very hard too. I'm trying to like build a rapport with the audience. And in order to do that, I want to come off completely authentic, no lies, no false narratives,
mm,
completely just myself when I get in front of this camera. I don't want it to be like scripted or anything like that. I always toss and turn about whether I should have notes, whether I shouldn't have notes, but they help to remember certain things. And going back to the notes, I want to talk about this trip that you went on, right? And, you know, for the audience, give aloud of the timeline of this Europe trip that you did during your gap year while you were playing golf that you mentioned before, right? You know, where'd you go? What'd you do?
yeah, you're gonna test my memory here. So I believe I left at the very beginning of June,
Mhm.
and embarked to Europe. So I initially went with, well, I met over there a couple of friends who did exchange at the University of Edinburgh. And so we first started, well, I first started, I did a night in London by myself. That was my first ever hostel. And I met some really nice people in the hostel and went out with them. And it was a really good hostel experience. So I highly recommend hostels. And then so I met them in Portugal, and that's where our Europe journey began. Um, Portugal was my second time going there. Um, Very cheap country. I remember the $4 beers. That was absolutely awesome. But probably not one of the highlights of my trip. Just because there's other countries that felt like a lot more to do,
Mhm.
a lot more aesthetic. So I'll move on to some of those ones. After Portugal, I went to Spain. Spain was similar to Portugal. Not my favorite, but yeah, still nice. You're in a different country. After Spain, we went to France. France, yeah, it's
Sounds like
alright.
you're not a big fan of any of these European countries
No,
so
no,
far. You're
I'm
not
building
selling
it
it
up.
very well.
I'm building it up. Okay, I'll
No,
skip
I'm
to the
just
good
kidding.
part. Switzerland. Switzerland was absolutely amazing. Um, so once again, we stayed in like a nice hostel and met some Americans who wanted to go hiking with us. I was with a friend, Alec, and he loved hiking. I also love hiking as well. So we went hiking. We went up to oh, forgotten the name of it now. Oh, Grindelwald.
Okay.
So if anyone's going to Switzerland, go to Grindelwald first. It's absolutely amazing. We did a hike up the top there. We went to this like really nice lake. It was so picturesque.
Mm.
And then just with these random Americans, you know, we just stripped off and went swimming in this freezing lake, with ice everywhere around us, and it was just so pretty. Just like there was also tourists like a couple like 100 meters away, just like what the hell are these American and Australian boys doing? But it's just like being a bit spontaneous and going off the beaten track. And doing those sort of things in Switzerland was amazing. Or like doing some hard hikes, where you could have taken up like the train or whatever gondola.
Mhm.
We hiked it up. We hiked up those, and it was so worth it. So Switzerland was definitely one of my favorite countries. And then I did Croatia Sail Week,
Okay.
which I think is very popular. I think a lot of people do that.
What is Sail Week?
So Sail Week is it's well, the way I see it is just like a week on a boat. So there's actually a company called Sail Week or Sail Croatia. I didn't go with any of those companies. I went on a cheaper boat that's Australian run.
Okay.
Oh, now I've forgotten the name of that one. Oh, Stoker Float or
Okay.
Stoke Travel Company.
Stoker Float's a funny name. Anyway.
Yeah,
continue.
yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And so it was like half the price of all the other companies.
Yeah.
And you were sharing it with 30 people in the boat. So much fun. Jumping off the boat. I remember we visited Dubrovnik and we did some cliff jumping. Have you ever done cliff jumping?
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
But like I've done like jump rocks and things like that, but not
So more
high,
like
probably.
yeah,
How high would you say? Over 10 meters?
yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, I probably haven't done over like 10, 15 meters, no.
So it's definitely higher than like I'm thinking about, the Olympic diving platform at like Sydney Olympic Park, which is
Yeah,
which is
that's
10
insane.
meters. Yeah. So I actually like jumped off there, like, because I'm assuming like I've got pretty good technique when entering the water. Obviously, I landed with my feet first, but I'm not uncoordinated.
I understand.
But even the impact of that, I still like had a hairline fracture in my collarbone.
Oh,
Sorry, in my
what?
sternum.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I remember, you dive in and then you're always bracing for that impact.
Yeah.
And I hit it and I didn't think there was anything wrong. And then as I'm swimming up to the surface to take a breath of air, I'm like, oh, this is a little bit painful. I'm sure I'm just winded or something.
Yeah.
Proceeds to not go away. So I'm stuck this whole week on a boat with this like hairline fracture in my sternum. Just
Oh.
really uncomfortable. Like I can survive, This what am I gonna do?
Dude, you're paying the price of a classic Europe trip. That's what
I
you're
know,
doing.
I know.
Dude, if you go to Europe, you're going to lose your phone. You're going to lose your passport, have to rock up to the embassy. You might fracture your sternum. Anything could go wrong, right? And you just got to adapt to those challenges as it comes. That's the whole beauty of a Europe trip,
Yeah.
right?
Well, it didn't stop me jumping off the boat still, because it was a couple stories high, the boat. But then after Croatia, we went to Italy, and that's when it got really bad. I obviously did some damage jumping off that boat and like swimming with it. And by the time I got to Italy, I was in some pain, some bad pain. So I went to the doctor there, spent I think it was 16 hours in a waiting room in a hospital.
Jeez.
Probably that was the lowest point. Just because there's nothing to do. 16 hours, no one spoke English. Luckily I had some really good friends who bought me pizza, and a phone charger, and that's all I needed. Pizza and a phone charger, but I'm pretty sure I didn't have any internet. There's no reception in the hospital. And so I was just trying to play these non-internet games. It was absolutely awful. So don't go to hospital in Europe. But it was very typical me because, every time I go overseas, I always have to go to hospital. I don't know. Every single trip I've done.
Did you go to hospital when we were in Jakarta?
When I got back.
When you got back, that's right. Yes, that's right. Didn't escape unscathed there either.
No, I don't know why. I just seem to go to hospital every year for different reasons.
Yeah, and it's like, do you think you have a strong immune system or not really?
No, I don't.
You don't.
So what happened? I know I'm getting a bit off topic.
Nah,
but
there's no topic. There's no topic. We're talking about whatever we want right now.
So it first started in year 10. So I went away on the Knox Cadet Camp. We went up to Singleton Army Range.
Okay.
Yep. And by the end of the camp, they realized that there was this massive tick infestation. They never went back, basically. Because on average, each kid, there's about 1,200 in the unit, got about 20 ticks on them.
Wow.
Not kidding. I was pretty sensible. I knew how to protect myself from ticks, how to blouse, do all that kind of stuff. I didn't get a single grass tick the whole time because, I was smart about it and I don't want to get a tick.
Yep.
Couple days afterwards, I'm walking down my grandma's drive and my legs give way and I just slam into the car. And that night I get 40-degree fevers. Like I'm a fever guy. I get those 40-degree fevers. People are like, "You're gonna die." I'm like, "Well, this is just normal."
It's normal BAU for Adam.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, this sucks. Like, yeah,
standard operating procedure.
Like some people, like vomit when they get sick. For me, it's just like, no, we'll just cook.
Yeah, instant sauna.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. It's absolutely horrible. But then we go to the hospital. I can't remember if it was in the hospital or right before we went to the hospital. Discovered a tick. Turns out it was a white tick, a paralysis tick, and contentious about Lyme disease in Australia. So apparently Lyme disease doesn't exist here. It only exists in America. So they diagnosed me with something called tick rickettsia or something like that. I can't remember. But I had all the symptoms of like a mild version of Lyme disease where I was sick for about 6 or 7 months in year 11 where I was battling fatigue. Like a lot of people didn't see me during school because I couldn't really hack school, which wasn't like me. Like I love school, I love doing activities, and I just couldn't do anything physical. And ever since then, I would get sick really easily. And it was a shame. Like but because they don't recognize it as being an actual disease in Australia.
That's so strange. I have no idea why that happens. I actually read a crazy article the other day, I believe, that Lyme disease was actually like lab leaked. Can we try and look this up, Carl? Because this is some pretty crazy conspiracy stuff.
Yeah,
And
it's a conspiracy in Australia. Like,
Yeah.
Lyme disease doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They're like, why is there this tension over Lyme disease? I just thought, we have Lyme disease, we have ticks, so do like the international community deals with ticks, right? What makes us so special and different, right? But then I was reading this article and I was like, oh, there's some real contention here about what Lyme disease is. Does it exist in Australia? Was it a lab leak, or was this natural? Was it engineered biochemical ticks that they released? There's all this crazy conspiracy stuff about it.
But all it did to me was just make me like, my immune system got weak, and I just didn't have any energy. Okay. That's all it was. When I say that's all it was pretty bad. Like, just imagine like just not having energy during the day, and you could do like half days of school, like for like 6 months. So year 11 was tough for me. Academically, it was bad and set me up really badly for year 12 because I did very poorly in year 11.
How did you manage to bounce back?
I didn't really, because I was still suffering a little bit in year 12. Like, you can ask my parents, they saw like very visible changes in me. But it sort of went away towards like halfway through year 12. So it wasn't too bad. But I had some other stuff going on in year 12. But yeah, I think like getting that tick, sort of like made my immune system pretty bad. And so, yeah, that's all it is. Like, sometimes I get like, when I get sick, I get like very sick. But outside of that, I'm perfectly healthy, or sort of, besides my leg.
We should give context about the leg.
Okay.
You know more about it than I do.
So, since we're diving into my medical history, when I was about 5, I think I did the splits at pre-kindy, or whatever you want to call it.
Flexible kid.
Yeah, I wasn't flexible. That's why I said trying to.
Okay, all right.
My sister was a gymnast, so I was like, I can one-up her.
Yep.
Could not do it. And then once I did it, I felt like a pain on the outside of my leg. So we went up to the physio. The physio's like, this isn't looking good. You need to get an x-ray immediately. There's not many times you go to the physio and they're like, you need to get an x-ray immediately.
Yeah, that's really strange, right?
So my mom like drives down to Westmead Children's Hospital as quickly as she can, because she's someone to like panic and worry about all this kind of stuff. We get the x-ray, we drive straight back to the physio. The physio makes a slight boo-boo and says, hey man, I think your son's got bone cancer. And bone cancer, I believe, you got like 12, 24 months to live. I don't know. Something like it's a bad one to have. I don't have bone cancer, but we do a little bit more investigation. Turns out I've got a unicameral bone cyst. So Carl, you can look that one up if you want to show the viewers what a picture of that looks like. It means that my femur is like hollow. So you know how you got bone marrow in your bones? I don't have any bone marrow in my femur. And so throughout primary school, I fractured it quite often. And if you break it, basically your leg gets amputated. Because imagine like dropping a piece of honeycomb. There's no amount of like metal needles that you can, also metal rods that you can put together to make honeycomb, you know?
Yeah.
Because that's what it is. It's basically honeycomb. And so in kindergarten, so from K to 2, I wasn't actually allowed outside. So for recess and lunch, I got to spend it every single day with the principal. And so I know.
Do you believe that hindered your development, Adam?
well. So yeah, like it was pretty grim. My sister was.
Was he a good bloke, or was it like shit chat the whole time?
No. We played Pokemon cards.
All right, that's good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
It was good. Got me into Pokemon.
Yep.
My sister would also come and visit me with her friends whenever they wanted to. Eventually I was allowed outside, but then in year 3 to year 6, I think I fractured it 3 times and was in a wheelchair for each year.
Damn.
For a little bit of time while it healed, because like I said, you can fracture it You can't break it though. As soon as you break it, it's like a big no-no. So I never played contact sport.
Mhm.
I've never played contact sport, never will. Actually, maybe I will. I need to get an X-ray to see if it's fixed. But yeah, so yeah, unicameral bone cyst. Do you have like an image there?
Is it gross? Is this
No,
gonna be
no,
a
no.
jump scare sort of? All right, good. Just making sure. Hold on, go to Google and just copy and paste this into Google Images.
Yeah, but I had a lot of operations as a kid.
Mhm.
Bit of experimental, which explains why I'm a bit, no, I'm kidding. And so they drilled like bone marrow from my hip into like my femur.
Okay, so hold on. Click this picture, Carl. So and enlarge that for the people at home. Just bring, yeah,
Yeah,
zoom in.
it's almost like that.
Yeah, gotcha. So this grey portion here,
It's
that's
meant
just
to have
hollow.
bone. Yeah,
There's just
yeah.
nothing there.
You can see how the outside's like really thin.
And so what is that, like sort of like an autoimmune thing where like the bone marrow has been eaten out by something? Like how
The
does
way
that
it was
necessarily work?
described to me was like there's a bone tumor that just like chews away at my bone, because that's why the surgeries didn't work. So I had some, I think I went for 4 surgeries for bone marrow transplants, which back then weren't too common. Like I said, it was a bit experimental. None of it worked. And yeah, it was pretty miserable being in hospital quite a few months.
Especially as a kid, like
Yeah.
from year 3 to year 6 in a wheelchair while all your mates are running around having a good time.
Oh.
And so yeah, wow, it's just like
Mm.
full on gone. I understand. That's crazy.
And it was devastating as well, because the thing I would have loved to do is just play rugby. Like if I could play any sport, that's what I would love to play.
Mm.
And I actually had like an amazing dream, I think towards the end of year 12, where like I ran out on the rugby field in front of the school and like played rugby and was like good at it. And it was just like probably one of the happiest dreams I've ever had. And yeah, I can't get to do that, but it's also opened up a lot of other doors, like my golf. And I basically have played every sport that is like non-contact.
Mm.
That's why I did swimming, track and field, absolutely everything during school, tennis, squash. So yeah.
One thing that's kind of been like a big thing in my life recently has been like these kind of burdens that sort of feel like they're from God a little bit. Like this, the tumor in your leg that ate away the bone marrow. There's nothing you can do to control that. It's just, one day you were doing the splits, next minute you're in the doctor, and that's the information you were given, right? But I've also kind of like started to interpret these things as like blessings as well as burdens as well. Like they're burdens in the beginning, but because of all the turmoil that you go through and all the hard times that you go through, it builds you up. It builds your character into potentially something more meaningful. And, like a famous MMA fighter recently said that adversity is a privilege, and going through any sort of adversity is going to build you up to be a stronger, better version of you. Has that been your experience with this, or has this just been the bane of your existence?
No, definitely not the bane. I do remember one time when I remember waking up from the anesthesia. I was in quite a bit of pain, and everyone was like around me like, "Oh, are you okay? Are you okay?" And I was like, I'm just glad that I've got this and no one else has to go through it. Like that's the sort of mentality that I took to it. And I feel like that helped me get through like not being able to go out on the playground, or being in a wheelchair for a lot of primary school. Like just have that sort of perspective on it. Like, thank God I've got it, and not the person sitting opposite me has it. Someone's got to do it, and if it has to be me, I'll take it. So I feel like that helped me, and I feel like I had quite a few burdens on me from a young age, which forced me to mature quite early. So especially during like the later years, like high school, I felt like I was quite mature for my age. I don't want to sound like a dickhead or anything. I don't know. I just felt like I understood and had a bit more empathy, especially like at an all boys school where, I'd gone through a bit of adversity when I was younger. Not just my leg, but a whole lot of other things.
Mhm.
And I could relate to people. I could have like good conversations. I wasn't trying to like one up or make fun of people. Like, I know there's a lot of people that make fun of people to pit themselves up. Like
Mhm.
that's what a lot of like bullies do.
That's all of school.
Yeah.
That's all it is, right?
Yeah. Whereas I never like, I felt like I never really fell into that trap where I was just much more sensitive and about the way like I talked about people, and I tried not to put people down just because like I had been down quite quite a lot, and I know what it feels like to be like to have adversity against you. So I feel like it's definitely helped me, and you know, the number of responsibilities I've had at my age, like I'm talking like 5 years ago and 10 years ago, like I had a lot of responsibility that a lot of other people wouldn't have had at those ages. And I feel like that shaped me massively in a good way and also in some bad ways. Like I feel like I grew up a little bit too fast. But I've also like been able to appreciate a lot more stuff, being a little bit like, I hate saying more mature, but like sort of having a greater understanding of like adversity, I'd say.
And what's really at stake? Like, I feel like when you go through traumatic events, like especially medical events with yourself at such an early age, you realize like, wow, it's my health above everything else, and nothing else matters if I'm in a wheelchair, right? And that perspective allows you to have gratitude for moments where you're just able to stand on your feet, right? Whereas most kids, they don't experience any adversity, especially here in the West, so they just grow up in, you know, in ideal luxury most of the time, right? And then, you know, they face adversity in their own life, but not many people to the extent that you have, right? You know, how do you necessarily get through it? Do you lean on others? Do you journal? Do you meditate? Do you have any like practices, or is this something where it's sort of just a mindset game for you?
Definitely mindset game. And full context, like I'm not someone who I don't want people to get the impression that, you know, I've got the worst life or the most I'm extremely privileged in so many ways. But I have had like an equal, so not an equal amount, but definitely some obstacles and hurdles to jump through. In terms of how I deal with that, I think just facing it pretty head on. Like I feel like I've got a good head above my shoulders where like I know a lot of people meditate and nothing against that, or like have a lot of coping strategies. Because the best way I cope is just by getting through it and having like a good perspective, like knowing that it's not going to be forever, or there's positives to come out of that. Like when I said about my leg, you know, I'm just glad that I have it and not someone else. Just trying to find like small positives out of it. That's the sort of mindset I've sort of like, you know, had.
No, I understand. I understand. We've gone down this rabbit hole of, you know, this adversity thing and your leg and getting, you know, breaking your sternum overseas and things like that. But I want to return to the trip now, right? So you're in Italy, you have this, you wait 16 hours, you eventually get this x-ray, you figure out that you fractured your sternum. What happens next?
Nothing. You can't really do anything for it. Like you can't wrap a cast around your entire
They
chest.
just tape you up, but like a big, you know,
Yeah,
big
it's
burrito.
more that I just wanted to know what happened.
What city were you in Italy?
Rome.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. I was in Rome, so I didn't get to see any of it. Because then I also feel physically sick as well. I don't know how I just had the fevers again. But luckily, I had already been to Italy. I was lucky enough to go. I was a bit younger. So when I was at school. So that was okay. But then, you know, I finally got a bit better. I was trying not to hold my bag too much. Like I relied on my friends to carry it, because anything like sort of lifting, like I feel like you'd understand that you actually use. It's surprising how much you use that part of you, and I didn't realize that.
People don't realize that there's all these little muscles in your ribs as well. I was learning about this the other day from like an amazing MMA coach, right? That stretching the muscles in between your ribs actually increases your cardiovascular capacity, right? Because essentially your lungs, they're just like two bags of air. There's no muscles in there. So it's all about your diaphragm contracting and expanding, right? And the ease that it's able to do that matters, right? So if you've stretched all those muscles there, and it's so much easier for you to expand your diaphragm, let more air in, then it's going to be easier for you to breathe, and therefore having better cardio, right?
Oh, that makes so much sense.
I know, yeah. And it's like, and you know, just when someone says that, you're like, oh yeah, that does make sense. But I've never thought about it that way, right? I do a bunch of stretching before I do any sort of workouts, right? Especially when it comes to mixed martial arts stuff. But there's these special ones that I've been doing where essentially I get the foam roller, I put it behind my back, and then I lean all the way back and try and grab the back of my head, which stretches all those, like the front rib muscles, I guess you could call them. They've got more scientific names, but it's all the ones just like that surround your rib cage. And then to get the back ones, you're just doing essentially hamstring sort of exercises where you're arching your back and getting those nice and extended as well. And I don't know if it works or not, but it definitely feels good. And it makes sense in theory, right?
No, 100%. I know, like in swimming, like, you know, your respiratory system is like really important. And so maybe that's why for dryland we always used a foam roller and just like stretched out and everything. Can't do that anymore because my sternum still bloody hurts even today. Like, yeah, but no, that's interesting about the muscles in between your ribs.
Well, it just goes to show exactly what you're saying is true, that when you've got an issue in your sternum, that core stability is super important, whatever you're doing when it comes to lifting weights or running or even just walking. Your whole body's involved, right? This is full body activity, right? And when something's sore like that, there's nothing you can do, right?
Yeah, well, luckily it was kind of bad because I was like halfway through my Europe trip at that point. But you know, I had good friends who helped me carry, and it slowly got better until like I could actually like lift some stuff up myself. But then like the last part of my Europe trip was just with my sister and I. And so I'd done a lot of planning for most of Europe, and then she said she'll plan Scandinavia because I did Scandinavia with her.
Wow.
Turns out that her and I travel very differently. So I'm the sort of guy who is very chill with travel, where I sort of wake up and say, hey, I want to do this, I want to do that. Where she's like got the full itinerary, and she's got like, she's in the city, she has to see absolutely everything in the city. Doesn't matter if it's enjoyable or not. So I remember it was in Denmark, Copenhagen.
Yes.
We were there for like 2 nights or something, but on this day it was raining, it was pouring. She made us walk about 30 kilometers throughout the city, like in the rain, miserable, just to see like this statue of a mermaid or whatever it was. And like, that's not my sort of travel. I'm like, hey, if it's raining, there's not much to do. If there's anything indoors, I'd do it. If not, I'm just hanging out at the hostel and doing stuff there. I know I'm in a foreign country, but if it's raining, I'm not going to have a good time walking in the rain. But
yeah,
she will do anything to, it doesn't matter if she's enjoying it or not. I think the part of like just ticking the box saying, hey, I did this, and this in this city, that gives her enjoyment, but doesn't give me any sort of enjoyment.
I understand. The bucket list things sometimes overrated, especially because you're like, you're seeing, it's an itinerary. You're on the bus at 6 or whatever it is. You're traveling here. You're walking all these kilometers, going from thing to thing without actually appreciating the culture that you're in, the artifacts that you're looking at, etc. Right? What was like, you talked about Switzerland being one of the highlights, right? Was there any other highlights or any like insane stories from the Europe trip that you want to share?
Probably the other highlight was Norway. We actually went camping on the top of this mountain overlooking this incredible range with like waterfalls and everything. I haven't done a single Europe post, which is pretty bad of me. Like, I don't get too much into Instagram, but I'm like, I should just actually like share photos of my Europe trip because not many people know about it except for those that joined me on my Europe trip. But that for sure was a massive highlight of mine. Sorry. And another experience was in Greece. I went on this Kontiki, and there was just some strange characters on this Greece Kontiki trip. So I had this guy called Max. He was from, I think, Toowoomba, or I don't know. He did like mining or something, fly in, fly out, I'm guessing.
Yep, FIFO work.
First night, he walks up to us with like a tray of like 50 shots. Like, he obviously had money to spend, and he was like the loosest guy there. Bit awkward though.
Okay.
But like super loose. You could tell like he'd been in the mine sort of thing and like, hadn't talked to many people. But it's just like hey, he's like 50 shots, guys. Like anyone who wants to take it, just take it. You know.
He was just excited to be there. He was just
Yeah.
excited to be out of wherever they got him posted up in Western Australia or whatever, right?
Exactly. Then there was like these 8 guys from Adelaide. We called them the Adelaide Boys. Apparently they were all related. I don't know if they were or not. Hopefully they're not watching this podcast right now. But they were like all like fully tattered, like the sleeves, the legs, like completely like 90% or 80% tattered. I don't know. They all had like their teeth done, like pearly white. And we asked them like, oh, what do you guys do? And they're like, oh, we all like, I work on refrigerators, etc. They proceed to like buy out the VIP booths of every single like beach club in Greece that we went to. And then one day we're going to go on this boat, and they didn't come with us because they already hired their own catamaran. So these guys had so much money. All this stuff was like Gucci or all these other expensive brands, which obviously I have no idea about.
Yes.
So safe to say, I don't think they were like your typical tradies. I think like the oldest guy, he didn't have any social media. He couldn't be found on social media. I think they might have, been sold drugs maybe.
They might have been up some other things potentially.
Yeah, because they actually like bought quite a lot, and you know how I am about drugs. Like I can't hack it. So like they were in my room, and obviously I was just sitting outside my room waiting for them to finish doing whatever they were doing in there. But then later in the trip, apparently it got stolen. Some of their stuff got stolen. And then they were saying like, if we find this person, we're gonna absolutely like kill them. Or I don't know if they're being serious or not, but I was like the sort of people you don't want to like mess around with, because these guys are absolutely jacked. Like I know you work out, but these guys were like
off their heads.
Yeah,
I hear
yeah.
you. When like, especially if they are messing around with drugs, they're probably going to be messing around with steroids as well. Because if you're willing to dabble with some stuff, you're probably willing to dabble with a lot, right?
Yeah.
If you're willing to like use your body as a bit of a guinea pig and put all these other substances in you, what stops you from putting steroids in there too to make yourself look huge, right?
I know, they scared the shit out of me.
Roid monsters are scary. Roid monsters are the like scariest type of people, not necessarily because they're so big, but because roids can really mess with your head. Like what is it? Like trenbolone, that's a like really popular steroid that gets you looking insane, right? Like people on tren, they're really about it. Like it's a high level steroid. Like people who are inexperienced, who are doing steroids for the first time, they're probably doing like a little bit of testosterone with a little bit of this and that, Anavar, etc. Like basic level things, maybe Deca, but then tren, that's like the gold standard. But it's also the one that messes with your mind the most. Like there's been crazy stories about like, I had a wife and kids and I had tren for 6 months, turned me gay. Now I'm like all this crazy stuff and messed with my mind. Like people literally just going completely insane and just like ending up in mental asylums because they had too much tren. Like it's one of the, it has a bad reputation about it, right? And there's some extreme examples, right? But just, like roid rage is a bit of a thing. Like it definitely enhances your ego. It gives you that like extra testosterone that's not necessarily naturally of you. It's, extrogenous, I think is what it's called. Was when you're injecting it into yourself, right? But anyway,
I'm sure they're very nice, but I'm just like, I didn't talk to them too much just because they had different interests than I did. And
it's one of those things though where I think like working out or doing any type of sport as a natural athlete, that sort of like grounds you. It makes you more humble, but like I feel like the juice just completely offsets all that humbling that exercise gives you, right? Because it's such a humbling process. You go in and everybody working out for the first time, you're either probably overweight or you're super skinny, right? And you're trying to either get jacked or lose weight and then get jacked, right? And then, there's a completely different system for girls as well. And they're under so much like comparison pressure as well too, right? You talked about Instagram a little bit, and you talked about that, you're not on there. You haven't even posted like anything on your Insta, right? Do you try and stay off the phone? What's the schedule look like for you?
I'm pretty busy. Like I don't go on the phone too much. Just because, like I said, I'm doing something every night. I'm working full time. I'm playing golf on the weekends, and on the golf course, you're not allowed to actually be on your phone really, except like to score. So like people call me all the time, and I'm like, nope, I can't actually answer your phone calls. Yeah, I try not to be on my phone too much. I'm more of like a people, like I enjoy like being around people. But having said that, I've noticed that like quite I can be extroverted sometimes and introverted at sometimes. So
Hmm.
it depends on like the sort of people I hang out with. Like if I'm hanging out with like extroverts, like I know like Angus is a massive extrovert. Like I turn into such an introvert like when I'm with him just because um I enjoy like hearing what other people have to say. Like I feel like I'm a good listener in
Hmm.
that sense. Um and I don't want to like I want to hear what they have to say, and I contribute when I feel like I can, but sometimes they have stuff that's so interesting, whereas like there's a lot of stuff in my life, but I don't feel confident that people are going to find that stuff interesting themselves.
I understand.
So
As you know, Angus was on the show yesterday. I asked him what's one thing that you'd like love to know about Adam, and he described you as someone who's quite reserved, right? And he used this metaphor, whereas like sometimes you'll talk about something and you almost have to like double click on that topic for Adam so he gives you the full story. And a lot of the time, the full story has a lot of value, but you reserve that. And as you've talked about before, you keep that private because that's just for you. You're not trying to flaunt it for any sort of reason, right? Is that an accurate description? Has Angus kind of like put the
yeah,
pieces of the puzzle together correctly?
I feel like that sort of came from school as well, where I was not the most humble person at school, where I was trying to achieve a lot of things, and I feel like as I've become a bit older, I try to be a bit more humble because in school I learned a really valuable lesson through
Mm.
that. It also comes down to I think that there's a lot of parts of my life that I think are like private that I don't really share too much, just because I don't think that they're like too interesting. Like at the moment, I'm carrying a lot from my uncle who's got like a mental disability, and that takes up a lot of my time. So I might not be doing as many interesting things as people because I've got different responsibilities than them. And I feel like if people are like, "Oh, what are you doing?" and I'm like, "Well, I don't really want to talk about that just because it's not going to be a really interesting thing or something that people can contribute to." And so I'd rather hear what they have to say
Mm.
and then contribute to those conversations. Just because, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like I've got a lot of different responsibilities in my life that like people don't know about, and um, some of them are like I'm a private person, but I also just don't want to like bore people with like burdens and responsibilities that I have.
Mm, mm. I feel like one of the responsibilities that's coming up for us in kind of like this new season of our lives post uni is moving out. It's kind of like the first thing that you do, and then kind of everything else follows after that, right? Do you have ambitions of moving out soon, or are you trying to bunker down in the house for as long as you can and save that money?
I do have ambitions. So next year I want to do one more Europe trip.
Okay.
And that's going to tick off all the countries that I didn't do last year. So I want to
Yeah.
do more of Eastern Europe.
Okay.
So like I want to do Croatia again, and then go for like Albania and all those sort of countries.
Go Serbia. It'll be great.
Yeah,
You'll get
Serbia. Yeah,
robbed.
yeah,
It'll be good.
yeah. I don't know if
No,
that
no,
part would
no.
be good.
I apologize, Baba. That's not what I'm not being serious. Serbia's a great country, but
Well, you're
I
hustling.
want to go Serbia so bad, and I think next year some of the boys are going to Eastern Europe, and I can't wait to go back to Serbia. So,
Yeah.
anyway, sorry. Continue.
No, no, no. And then once I come back from that trip, I want to move out, and I'm actually going to think about moving out near you, because I really want to come to the beaches.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
I did not know that.
yeah. So, I want to stay north because of my golf.
Hmm.
I want to stay a member at my club just because that's where I've always played golf. I've got a good group of individuals that I play with, good networking, um, and I want to move closer to the city, but also like near the beaches because I love the beach. So I feel like, somewhere like DY would be perfect, or Manly, or a bit north of Manly.
Hmm.
Anywhere around there is where I'd sort of like be looking to move out. But that's like a next year thing. I do like at home at the moment, like still got like my uncle that I take care of a little bit, or I try and support like my mom and my sister. So that's going to be a bit hard just because, I feel like my family does rely a little bit on me, just to be like a little bit of a rock sometimes.
Hmm.
So that's going to be like the biggest challenge to moving out. But I don't hate like, yeah, I think that's the only thing that's stopping me from moving out is just like the family part.
Mm. Do you think this might be a bit of an awkward question, but do you think the extra responsibility that you've picked up when it's come to caring for others in your family, do you think that's, kind of sort of taught you lessons about being a father and probably equipped you for that later in life? And is that an aspiration of yours?
Yeah, obviously, I'd love to become a father. Not something like soon or anything. Got to get into a relationship first for that. um, I think that it. I do have like a very caring sort of like personality where I have had a lot of experience caring for people, um, and it's a big responsibility and a big burden which I've had recently. Like my grandma did pass away last year, and I did a lot for her, just because she was living at home and um, my sister was working and everything. So a lot of that fell on me. So I'm used to like being in that carer or having that sort of responsibility. Um, it's it's not something like anyone says. Yes, no, I love to care for people when they're in like really bad scenarios, but it's something I find very valuable that like I get a lot out of like um, caring for my grandma. There's nothing more than I wanted to do than that. Or like my mum got quite sick a couple years ago, and so like having all that like responsibility and burden, like as I said before, it's sort of like it makes you grow up a little bit faster, sort of like having those like characteristics of like late in life where there's more caring responsibilities raising children.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I'd be really good at that. But the bad side of having that responsibility and burden is being like a little bit more shut off than most people. I feel like as time has gone on, I've become more introverted. Like, I don't know, how do you think, like, at university, compare me at the start of university, compare me to now? Do you think I was more extroverted or. In,
I know exactly what you're saying, and I think you're correct. I've never thought about it this way, and until you said it, it hasn't clocked in my mind. But first and second year Adam were very extroverted,
yeah.
right? But then today, like not that I notice, like probably still see you quite often, right? But you are right. It's less about you and more about others. Like what you said before really resonated with me when you were talking about being a good listener. Like if I'm talking about some of the friends that I have, the good listeners that are like top of the list, you're on that list. Like you might be top 3 best listeners that I know. I know that sounds crazy, but like it's true. It's true. You have a knack for understanding people, very like emotionally intelligent, and being able to like kind of use that to foster a really good friendship. And it's been awesome getting to know you over the last 5 years, and I've seen that play out, but also seen the changes and development in your character from an extroverted version of Adam to an introverted version. What do you think's next? Do you think there's a blend of both in your future, or do you think you're kind of heading down this introverted pathway forever?
I'd love to be more extroverted, and I feel like I need to surround myself around people who bring that more out of me. And I feel like the best way of doing that is being putting myself around people that like don't put me down. Like there's been like a lot of times in my life where people have put me down, where there's like my speech impediment in school, like the amount of times people called that out or like did that sort of stuff to me, like that's something that like pulls people down, and that sucks. Like that's like the worst like shit like behavior you can have. And like I guess like sort of experiences like that may make me more sensitive to like different people's humor, where people, sometimes make fun of people, and that's fine. And then sometimes, I can get a bit sensitive, or other people can get a bit sensitive, or we just have different types of humor just based off our human experiences. And so I feel like I'd become more extroverted, and I feel like that's why I'm more extroverted around certain types of certain groups of friends. Um, and I feel like those friends are more of the friends I've had for like years and years and years and years, sort of like pushing on like the 8-year mark, where like I I know them so well, and I've never had like a situation where they always build me up versus like some friends that like you know build me up, build me down. Like it's a bit more of a wave, and when it's a bit more of a wave, I feel like I'm just a little bit more introverted, I guess. But I love to be more extroverted, and I guess I rely on other people to do that. And if I can get to a stage where I'm more extroverted and more confident without relying on people, I think that would be great.
Mm.
But I feel like at school that sort of hindered me, where I was so extroverted, so confident, because I knew my own abilities, but then I got shut down. And so that's why I sort of been relying on other people to build me up, and like for other people to be more extroverted, because I'm scared of like being really extroverted and being boastful, all that kind of stuff.
I completely understand. It makes sense when you like, especially we've talked about it here and we fleshed this idea out really well. Like we've kind of talked about your childhood, the lessons that you learnt there, and how they kind of show themselves in your personality now and how that's developed over time. I think we've painted a really good picture for people. One thing that I want to go back to though is Kyle, can we scroll up in the chat GPT, because I'm really excited to figure out if Lyme disease was lab leaked or if I'm completely tripping, right? Let's figure this out. It was somewhere, it was past this golf stuff. Hold on. It was somewhere here. Where's that Lyme disease? I know we were talking about it. I know we got it on here somewhere. Here we go. Why does Australia treat Lyme disease like it doesn't exist? All right, here we go. Why does Australia treat Lyme disease like lack of confirmed indigenous cases? Okay. Australian health authorities do not deny the existence of Lyme-like diseases, but they do not recognise Lyme disease as acquired from Australian ticks. This is because Borrelia, good luck, Borderefi, the bacteria that causes classical Lyme disease in North America and Europe, has not been definitively found in Australian wildlife or ticks. So there's this alternative diagnosis, which is essentially what we've talked about.
Tick request,
Yep. So imported cases. So, okay. Was Lyme disease created or released from a lab? This is what I want to know right here. This is that conspiracy stuff. I've been waiting all day for this. This theory often points to Plum Island Animal Disease Center near Lyme, Connecticut, US, suggesting the disease may have originated from there. Some claim that the Borrelia was part of biological warfare research and accidentally escaped. However, scientific consensus, there's no scientific evidence supporting the lab leak theory of Lyme disease. The chemical was first identified in the 1970s, but similar chemicals have existed in nature for centuries, possibly even millennia. So I don't know, it's contentious. I'm like, ChatGPT, if the US leaked it, the US also made ChatGPT, so who knows what's going on. But that would, because Lyme disease, because that's affected so many people over like such a long history too, and it's such a terrible disease to get, and it's one of those ones where there's absolutely nothing you can do about it, and it hijacks one of the things that I love the most, which is being out in nature, right?
Oh, 100%. Like I said, the symptoms that I had, like obviously there's people that can't eat red meat. That'd be devastating.
If
for me.
I got that, just kill me.
Yeah.
If I got that, I'm done. I don't want to do anything else. I just want to cure myself or just bury myself in a hole.
As someone who loves meat probably more than you, that would be tragic if that happened. But
it almost did. You got lucky.
Yeah, I did.
Not lucky. You got Lyme disease, but at least you could eat red meat, right?
Well, I got a Lyme-like disease or something.
Lyme-like disease.
Like I said, just means like
cooked.
fatigue.
Yes.
And yeah, just couldn't do stuff.
No.
How frustrating would that be? Like you get out of bed and you just want you want to go to the gym, and your body's like, no.
No, I sort of know what you're talking about. Like it's hard to compare things like this with so many different conditions, right? But I've got something called ulcerative colitis, and when I first got that, I was in year 12. And when I first got that, I was trying to treat it with pharmaceuticals because that's what the doctors were saying, but they had bad side effects too. And as you said, similar sort of symptoms. I was tired all the time, didn't have a lot of energy for sports or for study, right? And like it happened, it was actually like crazy. Just as we were doing online school and everything was getting shut down, that's when this happened to me, right? Which was kind of good timing because when everything got shut down, there wasn't exams, there wasn't assessments that were graded, there was a bit of a break and no one knew what was going on because this was, 2020, like March, April, the pandemic's going on, people in Italy are dying, people in New York are on cruise ships getting blown up, whatever's going on. Like the news was just insane. We had no idea if we were going back to school, whatever's happening, right? So it was one of those ones where there was a lot lot of chaos at the time, and I sort of got lucky that I had it in that initial stage, and then I could figure out a way to manage it so that when I reached like the end of the year with exams, etc., major works due, all that sort of stuff, I was a little bit more adapted and understood like, okay, I can manage this if I eat healthy, if I eat clean. And that's exactly what I was talking about before, where a burden becomes a blessing. Something like ulcerative colitis, a genetic disease that it doesn't look like I'll ever get rid of, right? Like, because people can kind of like subdue it for long periods of time, but it never really goes away. If you've got it, you've got it, right? You're going to have to deal with it. But this burden that I've been given, right, has been a blessing in so many other areas of my life. It's taught me so much about nutrition. It's gave me, you know, like a great understanding of what I'm putting in my body, and that's fueled so many other outcomes for me when it comes to, you know, physical performance or just enjoyment in the gym or just enjoyment about eating clean and living a healthy lifestyle. Like, I think that's what it's all about, doing what you love. Because if you love eating healthy and you're just all about, you know, just healthy, clean food, ingredients, staying on top of the latest research and just being really dialed in, and that's how you like to live your life, power to you. But if it's a different way, it's everyone's own journey, right? And we talked about that before when we were talking about the diet.
Yeah.
While we're here, while we're talking about diet, fast food, etc., I gotta say, GYG look like they may indeed match my Guzman points, right, and put on a charity event, right? And this would be awesome. We posted a reel the other day. Noah and I talked about this on our first podcast, right? And we were talking about what are we going to do with these Guzman points? Let's give them away to charity. Let's see if Guzman will match them. Leon has a lot of connections with the Vinny Society and runs that through uni. So I think a Guzman burrito van handing out $1,500 worth of Guzman sounds pretty appealing to me, right? And I think that would be a great initiative, not just for Guzman, this podcast, but for the greater community of Sydney. And I think it would be awesome. So GYG, please get back to me. I sent you a DM, left me on red, sort that out, because you know, I'm trying to give away these points and I don't want them. If I wanted them, I would have already spent them, but I'm trying to give them away, do something better. And yeah. And I love GYG. I'd love to, I think, and I also find the CEOs of GYG really interesting as well. Like, I think they've done a really good job of marketing their like creatives and their, you know, like founders and things like that. Cause it's all those, like their CEO is American, right? And I think it's like a joint CEO and the other CEO is also from the States too. And they do podcasts, they do media, they do like little social media clips. They're almost like influencers for GYG.
You should have them on the podcast.
Dude, that's what I want. Build this GYG
that's
relationship
the dream.
up.
That's the dream.
Yeah, and as soon as he gets here, I'm going to be like, you need to stop putting that fucking canola oil in your food and stop poisoning people and get olive oil. But I don't know what the solution is, because olive oil is expensive, beef tallow is expensive, ghee is expensive. All these things are.
I'm sure Grace could tell you.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm no businessman, but they are, and they're super interesting guys. And like, they're not even necessarily like the people that founded GYG. They're not necessarily even food guys. Like, these guys they don't even really care about Mexican food at all, right? They're just money guys. They saw an opportunity in Australia where we didn't have a Taco Bell, we didn't have a Chipotle, we didn't have any of that sort of stuff set up here. And they go, look, this is a hole in the market where we can capitalize. And I think their business model is so good. Their food is insane. I'm literally all on board GYG. I love GYG. The only thing is the canola oil thing. That's literally it.
It's the one food chain I can't do because of the spice.
It's not spicy. Adam, for people that don't know, Adam can't hack any spice. He brought some KFC here today and it came with 2 Zinger burgers. I gave one to my dad and one to my brother, and they're upstairs enjoying them right now, right? But one of the craziest experiences for you, I imagine, would have been our BAC trip to Jakarta. Right?
Yeah.
Because, you know, there's a lot of spicy food over there too, and they don't necessarily understand when you're saying I can't hack spice, right? Because you have fried rice and you go red, right? You know, what was your experience like in Jakarta?
That was a little bit challenging. I think they had there was this hotel meal, you know, in the kitchen on the top floor. It was like a pad sigong or something, or I'm not sure. It was just rice, tomato, lettuce, and egg. And that was perfect. That's all I needed. But going out to like the different like restaurants and was a bit challenging. Just because my spice tolerance is shocking. I think throwing back to my second internship in BIAC, my team took me out to Indian to say their goodbyes to me and my farewell, and I felt terrible because all I could eat was like the naan bread, and like a little bit of the butter chicken, but I had so much water. I was like, oh, I just felt terrible just because my household, we never grew up with spice because my mum can't handle spice, and yeah, if you don't train your body to handle spice, just like if you can't train your body with like weights at the gym, you know, it's the same thing.
Exactly,
You can't
it's
hack
exactly
it.
the
You
same
can't
thing.
hack it.
You have to build up a tolerance over time.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about, listen, I should just build up a tolerance over time. I should start with some black pepper, move on to some mild chili, eventually move on to some real dishes with some spice in there. What do you think?
Look, I have been like notorious in the past for being like a little bit of a fussy eater, unfortunately, and so I have been like building upon that and like being like a lot better. I don't know, just one of my defects was just being like a fussy eater, but I'm not too fussy anymore these days, which is good. But I'm fussy about spice.
This reminds me of a memory I have, and I don't even know if I should be saying this
Oh,
on the pod,
no.
but this is hilarious.
This could be
We were
bad.
in Fiji, and we were at Mulla Mulla Beach Club, and they had the best lunch deals there. You could get these pork bao buns. They came with this amazing sweet honey sauce and the cucumber and the like lettuce and everything on that beautiful sweet bun. I remember I got two of those. I would have got another two more. Anthony got some, and you were coming by, and I was like, Adam, bro, please do yourself a favor, get some lunch. And you're like, listen, I wouldn't really eat Asian food, and I like lost my mind. I was like, Adam, do yourself a favor today and try something new. And you were like, listen, I'm not doing it, and I was wigging out. I was like, Adam, like this will benefit your life, right?
I'll tell you what. So at work this week, I'm in a new team, and we had to do like an icebreaker. I was like, if you could eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be? Do you have any guesses what I put down?
Steak.
I put down pad see ew.
What?
Yeah.
Wow, you're a big Patsy U fan.
I am. I'm a big Thai food.
Wow,
fan.
I actually
Yeah.
didn't know that. Okay, so you can. It's just a certain Asian delicacies, right?
Yeah,
Thai food is delicious.
I love Thai.
Mm.
Chinese, I'm not sold on like I like dumplings. But I'm not sold on like the general flavor. I don't find it the flavor is as good as Thai food. Indian food still like a no just because of
The spice.
the spice. No. What else? Japanese food. I don't mind sushi. Raw fish. Like I don't mind salmon. Like raw salmon, but I prefer like, you know, you smoke salmon, you cook salmon.
Okay.
But yeah, like I'm not too bad these days, Ethan. You know, it's I've gotten better.
No, I understand.
From the pork buns in Fiji to now, you know, I'm a different man.
I literally lost my mind. Like I lost my mind. I always was like gonna fight you to eat these pork buns. They were so good. I was like, Adam, you don't know what you're missing out on, bro.
I went to Cambodia for like 2 weeks back in year 10, and that one was also hard.
I can imagine. Even in Jakarta, like someone like me who loves spicy food, I remember we sat down for a meal one time and I ordered a beef rendang, which is one of my favorite. They do it really well in Indonesia, but it's also a Chinese dish too. And it came out, it was medium rare, it was absolutely perfect. I bit into this thing, it was so spicy. It was one of the spiciest things I've ever had. And I realized that the whole thing like was coated in like this crusted chili flake, and it was so spicy, just unbelievable. And it was one of those things where it was delicious, but I was literally like felt like I was gonna have a heart attack halfway through the meal. I was like, this is too much.
I think it was like the first day in Jakarta, you know, when they had like the dancing and Nick.
Oh yes,
Nick and,
of course.
Noah went
We
up.
got Leon and Noah to go sing us a song.
They provided us lunch, and I think I was sitting next to Angus. Angus, I was talking to someone else. Angus proceeds to put like a chili or something in my food.
Good on him.
And before he does that, he took away all the water on the table. And I was sitting in the middle of this table, and there was about 10 people on that side of me, 10 people on that side of me. I take one bite, and I'm like, my mouth is on fire. I'm like looking around the entire table. No water to be seen. And Angus is there just absolutely laughing his head off. But yeah, like my spice tolerance is bad, and I don't see it improving, unfortunately. I don't want to. I've got so many good foods that don't require spice, like my steaks. You know, I love my meat.
Yeah,
that I've got no desire to like make it better.
I understand. I think, man, if I had to eat one food for the rest of my life, like, because you're kind of like, this is a tough game though, because you said one food, but you said like a dish, like Patsy.
So one dish.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because like that's the thing when it comes to like single ingredient food, it has to be some sort of meat, and I'd probably have to be steak, right?
Oh, I'd be
like,
the same thing.
Yeah, if you're doing a single ingredient, but if you're talking a dish, it would probably be like steak with potatoes and salad. You know what I mean? Or like, steak with rice, onion, tomato, garlic. Like a
Yeah,
dish that's just balanced. That, no,
protein.
well, just has everything. Like you would want something that you can just hit all your macros. Like get an avocado in there for fats, get a whole bunch of rice in there for carbs, and then get steak in there for protein. You're ready to rock, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's what I'd be thinking if I had to do one meal for the rest of my life. But single ingredient food, definitely steak.
No, your diet knowledge is so impressive.
Thank you.
I'm
It's a blessing. It's a manifestation of, bad things that have happened to me. Chronic disease that I have has manifested itself into me being semi-knowledgeable about
you
this stuff.
you have made me think about it over the years, and I have tried to be a bit more balanced thanks to you. So
I'm trying my best because I think like it's it's one of those things where like it's not only about our diet, it's about our freedom. Like people don't know about the ingredients that are going into their bodies. People don't understand the impact that their environment, their surroundings, what they're consuming is having on their bodies. And that's not necessarily a conversation about nutrition. That's a conversation about education,
Mm,
about big corporate money being in big food and processed food being incentivized to be as cheap as possible, especially with crazy inflation going on right now. Well, we're sort of coming to the end of it, but over
yeah.
the last 2 or 3 years, we've had 7%, 4% inflation, year after year. Do you think the government need to do a better job about educating people about what's in their food, or is this something that we're just going to have to deal with to feed the immense population that we have? We're going to need to have processed food. We're going to need to have mass produced food, etc.
I think more can be done on the education part, but that's not going to be the determining factor by any means. I think that as the world's population just keeps on growing, especially at the rate it is, the food shortages, I think they obviously already exist in some of the more developing countries, but the developed countries like us and like the first world countries, it's just around the corner. I feel with more land being taken up for housing and development. I think that a food shortage will be a massive issue for these developed countries, and as such, the price of the food is going to be the most determining factor. When that supply drops, the prices are just going to go through the ceiling to a point where people don't care what they put in their body, just as long as they are fed.
And I think big money being involved in it is just like the cherry on top. And then it's kind of like the whole reason that the cake is made in the first place, right? Because this capitalist system incentivizes cheap ingredients to go in rather than expensive ones, so the product tastes better, lasts longer on the shelf, and is more affordable, right? But then you sort of end up with weird circumstances where people like Bill Gates are the number one owner of American farmland, right? And it's like, why does someone in tech have more farmland than anyone else in the States? And why is Australia selling a lot of our farmland to China, to Chinese manufacturers, so they can make our food? Why don't we support Australian farmers, right? It's kind of why is there more at play here than just feeding a healthy population and giving people the right education to make the right decisions? Why is it kind of like this secret game where corporations don't exactly want you to know? They try and cover it up with fancy advertising and marketing, when if you read the ingredients on the back, if you're educated, and they make it so hard to be educated, because even if you look at the back of a can, it'll say as we talked about before, it'll just have numbers and random stuff on there, and you don't know what that means, right? So, I think, and that's why I think the stuff that RFK is doing in the States, right? I've been very, very critical of this administration so far, especially recently. But I think one of the shining lights is RFK and his effort to try and take big money out of food, take money out of big pharma too, right? And try and decentralize these things so that we can create a better system that doesn't prioritize profits, but prioritizes the well-being and health of the nation, right? And
People's
I think
needs.
yeah, exactly. And that's where regulation serves a really good purpose, right? If we have genuine regulatory bodies that aren't motivated by profit, and they don't have corrupt people running them that essentially is taking handouts from their mates that run these giant, multinational food corporations, right? Then we're going to have a better system that prioritizes us. And therefore, we're going to spend less on medical stuff in Australia. Like our medical spending in Australia is off the charts. The US have they're the leaders when it comes to chronic disease and, cancer and cardiovascular disease. But we're not that far behind. We're not doing super well ourselves,
No.
right? And we spend a lot of money on healthcare in Australia, and that would go significantly down if the quality of our food and the education surrounding our food was increased. And I think, RFK is a really polarizing figure. He's talking all about vaccines, and vaccines makes it really polarizing. But I think all of that is just to take away the really good work that he's doing, where we're just going, okay, listen, we need to reevaluate the current food system because something's not working. America's supposedly the richest, wealthiest country in the world, and their population is the unhealthiest in the world, right? So it's like, okay, we need a fresh slate. We need people to come in and look at this stuff and real tests to be done, right? So, and that's why I think it's important. And that's why I think a mix up, a change, especially in that health department, is a good idea.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
So yeah, I don't know too much about the American politics, but I did see like a interesting stat the other day where the returns that the people from the Senate were getting were like 10 times that of Warren Buffett
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah, it's
Just
insane.
because of like what you're talking about before the
Mm.
insider trading. I was like, that's
Well, this is what I have to say. Praise God for Thomas Massey. He's an absolute hero. He's a congressman in the US that's trying to pass bills that would make it illegal for congressmen, senators, representatives of the House, presidents to place stock trades and interact in the stock market. It would allow them to have a portfolio that's managed by external parties, and maybe that could be manipulated. But I think this is a move in the right direction. But Thomas Massey's been hit with a lot of criticism as from Trump, from the left, from the right, because everyone does this. Everyone from Nancy Pelosi to Bernie Sanders to AOC, right? All these people on the left to Trump, Vance, etc. Right? And I don't know the specifics on it, but I know, well, I do know the specifics on Pelosi. She's made a lot of money over many years, right? And people always talk about Pelosi. She's the poster child for insider trading in the American system. She really is. Like, and Carl's even told me about this. There's like applications that track what Nancy Pelosi and her husband are trading on, and people who are traders looking to make money literally just copy these trades because they know that they've got new information.
yeah.
And people who aren't listening, the way that this would work, right, is let's say Nancy Pelosi's got some inside information about the war in Ukraine and Russia, let's say, right? And the US is looking to pass a deal to give more foreign aid to Ukraine, right? What she can do is invest in defense contract companies like Raytheon, like Halliburton, etc., right? And these companies, once that funding is announced and passed in the House, right, which she would know about before anybody else, these stocks are going to pump. She sells them. She makes a bunch of money. And this exact example can be done for when they pass new tech laws. Like there's been, a whole bunch of money made off chip manufacturing and things recently. So, exactly. People are just copy trading politicians like Nancy Pelosi because they have like financial disclosures that are public, so all these members are public. But Thomas Massey doing a really good job advocating for trading to be taken out of politics, which I think is a good idea.
I think it's a great idea that if you're a politician, that whilst you're serving the people, you can't have a financial portfolio where you're investing in companies that your policies are going to be impacting.
It's just common sense.
Just put it in the bank. Just put it in the bank and cop the 2% interest or whatever it is.
Yes, or just let a portfolio manager at a big investment firm manage it for you.
Yeah.
Like a lot of these politicians, by the time they get in there, by virtue of how the political system is structured, these people are already quite wealthy by the time they step foot in Congress, right? So they've definitely got managers on the side. But a lot of what we see, especially with this Pelosi stuff, is not actually her placing the trades, but her husband placing the trades. Like I think, I saw something crazy where he had like 4 or 5 trades back to back, which were like 400, 500% return. And it's just like over the course of 6 months. And it's just insane. And it's blatant. It's literally blatant corruption, really.
Yeah.
And, I think efforts to take it out of politics are a good idea. You said that you don't keep up with it much. Is there anything interesting in the world like going on right now that you do keep up with or is really on your heart or in your head?
I feel like I'm just I just feel like I'm quite busy with my own life in terms of, I've just got something going on every single day. I've got a generally good idea of global politics, what's happening. I think it's really important to have an aware of like the market. I work at a bank. I read the market update every single morning. So I've got like a good general awareness, but in terms of like spending time on those sort of things, any spare time or downtime I have, like I don't really watch TV. Like if I were to watch TV, I'll watch like live sport, something like the NRL on a Thursday night, or watch the Golf Channel. But outside of that, I'm not going to like invest a lot of time into like the US politics. But like I said, I think it's so good to have a good general understanding because their economy affects our economy, which affects my job, which affects my everyday living. Like you can't live in a world just with blinders on.
No, completely agree, especially in an industry like banking, right?
Yeah.
And you know me as well. I don't watch any shows, right? I don't watch
Mm.
any like TV. The only thing I will watch on my TV is the UFC and then the Collingwood game in the AFL. That's
Yeah,
essentially
similar to me.
that's
Yeah.
literally it. So I'll spend maybe, and a lot of the time UFC don't even have a good card on that weekend. So
Yeah.
a lot of the time, most of the time I'll still watch a bad card, but most of the time I'm spending maybe like a couple of hours per week in front of the TV. But this is the thing, you know me, I'm super switched on to especially American politics. I think because of exactly what you mentioned, the fact that America is essentially like the global economic leader, and a lot of what they say impacts our market, international markets, etc. Especially recently, it's one of those ones where that has always intrigued me, and that's kind of like my version of entertainment a little bit. Like I'm just
Yeah.
watching this giant reality TV show about Trump doing trade deals and bombing people and stuff, which is all like pretty crazy, and a lot of it really sad and tragic, especially all the wars raging on right now. And but like that's kind of like what fills that gap for me. And no story that someone could make up or script is as interesting as the crazy world that we're living in right now. Like even today, like we're not even doing a conspiracy type episode. I'm never trying to do a conspiracy type episode. It always turns into that. But we're talking about, was Lyme disease manufactured in this lab in Connecticut? Was it like a product of biological evolution, right? And there's so much unknowns, and there's so much corruption, not just in the US but internationally, that it kind of like, once your mind gets opened to like a few things, you start going like, what about this and what about that, and like, oh, I've always believed this and I've always trusted that system, but what if this is true, and what if I've just kind of been
You get more
naive
curious.
to it, right?
Yeah.
And I think the main catalyst for a lot of people had to be COVID. For me, it was COVID, right? Because it happened at such a like like a pivotal time in our lives too. We were 18, we were going through
20.
exactly, we were going through our final year of schooling, right? We got the jabs. Like we were essentially told like, if we don't get vaccinated, we're not going to be able to graduate,
Yeah.
get our HSC results, go to uni, etc., right? And it was like, when I was in that moment, I was like, the government can just force me to do something. Like if I refuse to get this vaccine, my life is like, I don't know what's gonna happen. My mom's gonna have to homeschool me or something. They're gonna let me finish year 12, right? And we'll do my HSC or all the major works I was working on, all the things that I wanted to do, the BAC application, all that stuff is gone, right? Just because I wouldn't get a shot. And like back in the day, I wasn't as switched on to a lot of the conspiracy stuff that I'm switched on to now, right? So I didn't necessarily question it as hard. But it was interesting when that that switch flipped for me, where it's like, oh, okay, I understand. This is like this is where maybe something goes too far, and this is the type of control that they can exercise. And then that kind of like peels it back and it's like, okay, they lied a whole bunch about COVID, and they were wrong a whole lot about COVID, and they knew they were wrong, but they continued to say it anyway. And so it was like, okay, what else are they willing to just try and get away with here, right? And that can open whatever can of worms you want, right? So, but it's also a very pessimistic view of the world too, because there's so much crazy stuff going on. Like even stuff that isn't about a corrupt system, or a society that's like kind of engineered to get you down. Completely separate from that, even just staying up to date with the news. Like there was a terrible earthquake in Russia today, like millions of people displaced, apparently one of the worst they've seen.
Tsunami watches as well.
Exactly, right? And so the news gets you down, and it's not necessarily like I don't know if humans are made to be as interconnected as we are. Like I don't know if we're necessarily meant to see everybody in the world's bad news on our phone. You know what I mean? Like maybe we're only meant to see our own lives, and that's better to like emotionally curate us and allow us to process these things, right? Whereas just being on the news all the time, kind of being addicted to like, oh, what's next today? What's the market doing? What's this? What's that? Kind of gives you that stimulus,
Yeah, I think there's a balance though. Like I think that you need to have some downtime and some personal time. And like there's stuff that you got to prioritize in your life. Like my priorities is like my number one's my family. My number two is then like myself, like my health and that kind of stuff. And then like all the way down would be like sort of like world events isn't like really like a priority, or like listening to the news. I think it's important. Like on my commute to and from work, like I'm on, you know, I go for like TikTok or Instagram, and I'm on that algorithm that gives me like world updates and politics and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just feel like it's how you like rank them in terms of your priorities. And obviously like you really enjoy all that kind of stuff, like the political side of things, and being curious about like, you know, questioning stuff. And I think that's awesome. Like I think I'm a curious person, but then you doing this podcast, wanting to learn from different people, you make me look like the most non-curious person ever. And I think that's awesome from you.
No, well, like that's one of the best things about having a podcast. If this thing makes no money, if we never get anywhere, I get a really amazing chance to learn from people that I never would have had the opportunity to sit down and talk
Yeah.
to for an extended period of time. Even us, we've been friends for 5 years, been close that whole time. Very rarely do we get an opportunity where it's just like, okay, no holds bar conversation for an unlimited amount of time. We can get deep, we can have fun and be shallow. Like we can touch on any subject and just freely express ourselves, right? Because like a lot of the time, like if I see you, we're just eating lunch, we got a sort of time limit, we know what we're going to talk about. I haven't seen you in a couple of weeks, so we're just catching up on the basic things. But going, even, you know, I've known you for so long, but you telling the stories about your childhood, how you grew up, the adversity that you faced, and how that turned you into the man that you are today, like it's powerful. And I think that's inspiring, and that's what the whole point of the show is. Everybody has a story to tell, and everybody can inspire others with their own journey that they've been on. And Adam, you've been a brilliant example of that. Thank you for coming on the show today.
No, thank you, Ethan.
Dude, this has been so cool. One of the best episodes so far, I reckon, legitimately. Thanks, everyone. Catch up.
Thanks.